When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Eagles fans, welcome back to another edition of Football 24/7. I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II, and I'm joined by our official Eagles insider, the one and only John McMullen. Now, John, you know I give the best intros. You know I love making sure that people understand that you're one of the best in the game doing this thing. So, before we get too deep into the content, how are you feeling today, sir? How was your day? How's everything treating you? What's the overall vibes right now down at the Norfolk Complex?
Well, I'll let you know when we're allowed back in. We're
Okay.
not going to be back in until Thursday. So Monday night game. So pushed back.
It's kind of late.
Yeah, it is. They gave players, they're 8-1. So it's kind of now they're collectively bargained. They have to have off over the weekend, and but the Eagles could have brought them back a little bit earlier, but. It's tough to be a hard ass when you're 8-1. So
yeah, to the victor goes the spoils.
Yeah, I don't. But they are practicing on Thursday instead of a walkthrough. They had been doing the Wednesday walkthrough, so everything's kicked back a day because of the Monday night game, and they are going to be on the field for a full practice. So a little bit different coming off the bye week. They want to get the guys back into it, but. Yeah, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, practice in front of Kansas City on Monday Night Football.
So walk me through your typical bye week shenanigans, John, when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, how do these bye weeks normally go? I mean, we know the guys have the days off, but I guess by the order of events, what do the coaches typically do? Are the coaches taking advantage of the bye week, or are these guys really locked into the lab just trying to figure out what's next?
Coaches typically work a little bit, but Nick was very cognizant of giving his guys on the staff some time off as well. So the Eagles, They were back in on Monday, though, the front office and the coaches. So a little bit of extra time from their perspective. But Nick doesn't want them overdoing it. It's a long season. Same thing with the players. If you're 1-8, you probably got to be in there trying to figure stuff out. But 8-1. Again, are you going to be a hard ass and say, you guys got to be back in here working? It's probably more self-defeating than anything else. So Nick was very cognizant that those guys need a break as well. And yeah, it's one of my pet peeves because you see it all over the country. I saw it this year with Zach Wilson. There was a big story in New York about evidently he went back to Utah to spend time with his girlfriend, and they were saying he's got to be in the facility. He's not allowed in the facility. They collectively bargained the time off during the bye week. This week, you're going to hear it in Kansas City, I'm sure, from certain fans, because Travis Kelce, very high profile, saw him down in Argentina with his girlfriend. He can't.
He can't look at film. He can't go in the facility. He can't touch any weight.
He can look at film. He can go in the facility to work out. You guys who live in Philadelphia can go to the NovaCare complex to work out, but they can't do any football work. They can't meet with coaches. They can't do any of that action. For people saying, well, you can go in there and, on one hand, people say, oh, you can't cheat. Michigan, Bill Belichick, you can't cheat. And on the other hand, they'll say, well, just go back in. How do they get? They got cameras all over that place. People get fined all the time.
Well,
the NFL PA's on top of that stuff.
Well, what happens? What happens if I'm a player and I happen to see Coach in the hallway? Do I just not look at him, or do I just give him the head nod and not say anything to him? How does that work? I mean, especially if I'm working out.
You're allowed to say hello. You're allowed to interact like a human being, but no, you're not allowed to do any football work. So there's no meetings, there's no on-field stuff, and it's not allowed. So people can scream as long as they want to scream, and they're human beings. They don't think about football 24/7. They have lives, they have wives, they have children. Younger guys might have a girlfriend. They have lives. It's a job like any other job.
Because best believe when I'm off from this, John, I do not think a lick about the people watching the content. I don't think about you. I don't think about Xander.
Well, now that hurts.
I don't think about. I still love you, John. I still got
that hurts. You, but it's just we went through it with the Super Bowl last year, and Jonathan Gannon having a 15-minute conversation. Oh my God! Like people are going out to dinner. They're human beings.
Yeah, that is very true. This 5-game stretch coming up. Let's get into it, man. This 5-game stretch is going to be, as everyone deems, the hardest 5-game stretch of the NFL season for any team.
Is it?
That's what they're saying, John. That's what the national media is qualifying it as, or quantifying it as, right? The toughest stretch of the NFL season for any team in the NFL. Just as the Philadelphia Eagles had the hardest overall schedule in the NFL. That's what they tell us. But the first matchup, Eagles versus Chiefs. Of course, the Eagles are only focused on going 1-0 each and every week, right? But we don't necessarily have to focus on just one game at a time. We can afford to look ahead because we're not actually the ones playing in the game. This Chiefs matchup, first of many, what's your initial thoughts about this matchup? What are the things that are going through your mind in terms of matchups and just the rematch of the Super Bowl? What are your overall thoughts about this matchup as it stands right now?
Well, first of all, real quick, the schedule aspect of it, that's why you can't go on last year's records. At the beginning of the season, how tough is Buffalo going to be? Well, now they're not looking so tough. They're not looking nearly as good as expected. They're not even going to make the playoffs, most likely. They've lost 5 games. They lost them all in the conference. You got to wait. Got to wait and see before declaring everything is this or that. It's a week-to-week league. It's a situational league.
John, if people were going to think logically, I don't think any of us would be where we are right now. This isn't a logical business. Everyone is all about the hyperbole. Everyone is all about
Not me, man.
The shock jockey. Okay, so John, leave logic at home. Leave logic at NovaCare. Okay?
Some people, I can't do it. That's my that's my superpower. I can't do the opposite. I think it's silly. Like I said, when I was bringing out, like, why are you going to get upset about people going on vacation? It doesn't make sense to me, but people get upset. People want to declare the toughest schedule in the history of the world in August. Feel free, but stuff's going to happen. I thought their first loss would be the New York Jets in the preseason, and it turned out to be correct for a completely different reason. I thought they were going to beat them because they were going to be a really good team with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. They beat them because the Eagles had an uncharacteristic game and turnovers all over the place, and Jalen Hurts made an uncharacteristic bad play at the end of the game. Nothing ever works out in the NFL as you expect it to. But as we say that, the Eagles are here going to Kansas City, rematch of Super Bowl 57, best record in the NFL for the Eagles, best record in the AFC for the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
And they both have lack style points. So they're both sort of in their home cities in that, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? But they are winning more football games than everybody else in their particular conference. So that's where we both are. It's always interesting because Andy Reid, I don't think younger fans realize everything the Eagles do is rooted in Andy Reid from 1999. Everything. He taught this organization how to build a roster. He taught Howie Roseman how to do it. The Chiefs do it the same way. And it's no coincidence that two teams that do it right are in the position they are in.
It's funny you brought up the fact that neither of these teams, have really won with style points, right? It's been close games. It's been nip and tuck. They lost a game here and there that many thought that they would win or dominate. Yet they still have the number one seeds in both of their respective conferences. And it seems as if they're on a collision course. And you look at these other teams who have won with style points, yet they've lost significantly more games than the Eagles and Chiefs combined. Why do you think the Eagles and the Chiefs are covered the way they're covered? I mean, is it simply because they're, with greatness comes, great criticism? Is it really just that simple, John?
No, it comes with expectations. So they're expected to play well. And when you're expected to play well and you don't play up to people's expectations, it becomes a thing. And the Eagles, not for everybody, but for a lot of people, haven't lived up to their expectations, as silly as that sounds, at 8-1. Same thing with the Chiefs. Even I would say even to a greater degree with the Chiefs, because their offense hasn't been good, to be honest. And they have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Their offense is supposed to be carrying them. Their defense has actually been the better of the two groups this year, which is a little bit weird for them. So they're going about things a little bit of a different way this season so far, struggling at the wide receiver position mightily, which tells you it's probably a pretty bad group, because if you're struggling with Patrick Mahomes, you got some issues. So they're a little bit different. Everybody's different. The Eagles are different. We've talked about it. New coordinators, 5 new starters on defense. There's so much change in the NFL. So for all those people who want to look back at Super Bowl 57, doesn't have a lot of bearing on this particular game, other than it's the same teams, the same organizations, and everybody's going to act like it has a bearing on this game.
I mean, is it fair to say there's some emotional or prideful bearing involved, at least for these players?
Oh, yeah. I mean, but generally, most players are very competitive by nature to begin with. So, the Eagles, I think it's more on the Eagles side than Kansas City side, because the Eagles really thought they were the better team. I agree with them. They thought they outplayed the Chiefs. I agree with them. And and they thought they beat themselves, I agree with them. So from their standpoint, I think there's a little bit more want than Kansas City, other than the typical, Andy wants to win every game. Patrick Mahomes wants to win every game. But I don't get the sense this is a great rivalry or there's any angst or hatred, or I kind of get the exact opposite, because
You
Andy
think it's
has,
more so rooted in respect,
yeah,
rather
I
than
mean, well, the Eagles have tremendous respect for Andy Reid, obviously. And, Nick used to work in Kansas City and loves that city, met his wife there.
Mm.
So I don't get the feeling um, there's any hatred or anything of that nature. Maybe if Juju was still there, but
I don't think Juju's anywhere to be found right now. He is he's fallen into obscurity with whatever roster he's on.
and so of New England, but so has the Chiefs receivers.
Yeah.
They're not great. Now they're still, while we say it, they still have a top 10 offense. They're number 8, 13th in points per game. Not great, not terrible. But compared to what they usually are, that's bad for them.
Mm.
And that's sort of the framework out there um, from their fan base. But the defense is ranked 4th, 2nd in points per game, and that's much better than it typically is. And also very uncharacteristic. They've been turning the ball over a lot. When they lost to Denver a couple weeks ago, which was probably their worst game of the year.
4 turnovers, right? I think
yeah,
it was what, 2 interceptions or two
yeah,
fumbles or 3 interceptions, 1 fumble. I can't remember, but it was definitely like 4 turnovers.
yeah. So same as the Eagles against the Jets, and they're both minus in turnover, which is weird. Both the Eagles and
Interesting.
Chiefs.
Interesting. So it's interesting because the Chiefs, their defense has impressed, but their offense has regressed. And obviously, Patrick Mahomes is the linchpin in that offense. He makes them go, and he's doing the best he can with what he's been given at the receiver position. Travis Kelce isn't having the most explosive season that we're used to seeing him have. But still, there's a level, or there is a reason to take this opponent extremely seriously, obviously, for obvious reasons. I'm curious to know what the Eagles' deficiencies in terms of their pass defense, even though run defense has improved, their deficiencies is pass defense this season. The past 2 games where they played the Chiefs, their run defense has been the issue, giving up 200-plus yards in the first matchup in 2021 and 2022 in the Super Bowl, giving up over 150 yards rushing. With the Philadelphia Eagles' run defense being better, but clearly the pass defense being worse, what's your level of concern for this Eagles defense going up against Patrick Mahomes, despite him having limited weaponry?
Well, it's always the concern. I mean, the Eagles defense, run defense, obviously has been very good this season. That's partially because it's very good, and partially because Jordan Davis has had a tremendous start to the season as that big run stopper in the middle. But I think you also have to be honest, and it's also because teams are usually playing from behind against the Eagles, and usually, not always, obviously they got down in Washington 14-3, but usually teams are playing from behind, and it's easy to pass the ball against them. So, it's sort of, you struggle a little bit at the outset running the football. You start throwing it, you have success throwing it. Why are you going to run it? Why are you going to bang your head against the wall? So, it's very good, but understand there's a skew there a little bit. So, how I feel about
I know.
statistics. I mean, a lot of it is very explainable when you layer it, but they're very good against the run. And then when you pack on the other stuff that makes them number one. Would they be number one if they were an average team with a better secondary and more balanced defensively? Probably not, is what I'm trying to say. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was looking up a stat, and in terms of the percentage that teams throw against the Eagles versus how many times they, how often they pass, and it's pretty lopsided, man. The teams are passing the ball on the Philadelphia Eagles north of 70% of the time, and teams are running the ball against the Eagles around 30% of the time. I mean, is that strictly because they lead most of the games, or it's a combination of, yeah, they're leading, but also teams look at the Eagles like, we can pass the ball. Why waste our time running against Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. I mean, that's exactly it. That's yeah, they get behind generally, and it's easier to throw the ball. So when you have some success throwing it, um, you you know you don't have to go back to uh, uh, running the football. So it's part, and they're very good against the run, um, but it's a little bit skewed because of that, because it is easier to pass the ball. They're 28th in passing. You know, they're first in run. They're 28th in passing. So what are you going to do?
That's a good point, John. So let me ask you this, right? If I want you to give, try to take me behind enemy lines here, right? Um, if if you're Spagnuolo for the Kansas City Chiefs defense, and you're trying to make the Philadelphia Eagles offense as uncomfortable as possible, and you're trying to take advantage of them, how would you take advantage of the Philadelphia Eagles offense if you're Spags? How would you stop them? How would you try to take Jalen Hurts out of his game?
Well, I'm gonna. Um, that's what typically makes the Eagles so difficult when Jalen is completely healthy. You got to pick your poison and say, what are you going to do? Since his knee injury, I would try to, stop the passing game foremost. Light boxes, say, all right, you want to try to run on us without the quarterback involved, go right ahead. But you have to kind of feel that out. The bye week, as Jalen said, came selfishly. He said, for him, it came at a great time. So if he comes back healthier and feels comfortable, and threatens the defense with the ability to pull the football, all of a sudden the Eagles' running game is going to be back up to speed, and he can't do that. But until he proves it, that's the way I would go about trying to stop the Eagles, because they're averaging under 3.5 yards per carry in the traditional running game since Jalen got banged up. DeAndre Swift is averaging 3.1 yards per carry since Jalen got banged up. That's the way I would go about it.
Okay, now let's flip it to the Eagles side, right? If you're showing the side and you're trying your best to limit Patrick Mahomes, I mean, stopping him is a whole nother matter, but if just doing your best trying to limit him, if you're showing the side, what does he and his defense need to do to try to keep this game from getting out of hand and allowing Patrick Mahomes to just carve them up? As we
Well, I
saw
don't
in Dak
think
Prescott.
that's the beauty. I don't think you have to worry about it getting out of hand because the Chiefs aren't as explosive as they typically are.
But they do
And that's a
struggle.
good thing.
The Eagles do struggle in the middle of the field as of right now until they prove otherwise. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna bracket Travis Kelce. Hopefully, Taylor Swift took a lot out of him.
but it's
Um,
John, you dirty dog, man. You dirty dog.
nobody else is going to scare you on that. But who beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl? Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. But those are blown coverages. Hopefully the Eagles do a better job. I expect Bradley Roby to be back for this game. Kevin Byard's getting more comfortable, I would assume. So things should settle down a little bit. And this is a week where You're not basing CeeDee Lamb. You're not basing Cooper Kupp. You're not basing Justin Jefferson. They don't have a receiver like that. So you can breathe a little bit. You can assume that Roby's going to be a little bit better at the bare minimum than Sidney Brown and Eli Ricks. He's certainly going to understand his job description better. So that should help. And they just don't have good receivers. I mean, that's all Kansas City's talking about. They don't have receivers. And it has really limited the offense. And if you can't put up numbers with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, like I said, it's probably a good indication that they got bad receivers. I mean, you're not going to get a better vehicle getting you the football. So from that perspective, I think the Eagles are getting a little bit of a breath. And so everything's about matchups and situations. Everybody's worried about, as you should, when CeeDee Lamb's out there. When Cooper Kupp's out there, they don't have that. There's no Tyreek Hill opening, coming out that door. You saw Tyreek as well earlier this season. They don't have that player, and they're struggling because of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, John, in closing, based off the complexion of the NFC right now and how things are pretty much laying out in terms of team records, and obviously we have an entire second half of the season to go. Who do you believe poses the largest threat or the biggest threat to the Philadelphia Eagles' chances of getting back to the Super Bowl?
49ers. Not even close, with as long as they're healthy. Now, I don't like the quarterback. And Jody gets mad at me every morning. I don't believe in the quarterback. But everything else they have, when Trent Williams is back, man, that guy is good. Deebo Samuel's back. Everything else they have. The defense is starting to get back on track. They had a little bit of a lull, but they added Chase Young to Nick
3-game lull
and Javon Hargrave and Fred Warner. They're a lot more talented on defense than the Eagles are on defense. Now, I still like the Eagles in the matchup because I think the Eagles' offensive line is better equipped to handle San Francisco's defensive front than vice versa. The Eagles have the better quarterback, so I still like the matchup. But if they bring their A game on a particular game day, and don't give me the championship game last year because Purdy got hurt and Josh Johnson's in there, that's not a good indication.
Yeah, and then Josh Johnson got hurt, and then just get hurt. They both got knocked out the game. That was the crazy part about it.
So they're really good. And they're really talented, and the Eagles know it. Howie was trying, the story came out, Howie was trying to prevent him from getting Pat Surtain, Jalen Johnson. That's why you heard all those rumors about the Eagles going after a corner. Wasn't necessarily that they wanted a corner, although they loved Surtain. They always have since the draft. But they didn't want San Francisco to get him. They know. It's interesting because there's two different parts of this equation. Detroit is the biggest threat for the number 1 seed because they have the easiest schedule. They're 1 game behind the Eagles. But as far as who can beat the Eagles, I think the Eagles could go in Detroit, worst case scenario, beat the Lions. San Francisco, probably not going to catch the Eagles for the number 1 seed, but they could beat the Eagles. They're talented enough to beat the Eagles.
Hey, man, this 5-game stretch is going to be super exciting, especially this Chiefs matchup, a Super Bowl rematch, as the fans would like to call it. But, John, I appreciate you for always taking time out for the show, man. I know you have a busy schedule, and I do not take your time for granted, my man. So make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys subscribe to the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. You guys were locked in on football 24/7 with John McMullen, our Eagles insider, and I'm your host, Tone DeShields II, and we'll see you next time.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. but that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com.